We were fortunate enough while we were up here in the UP to be able to stop by Whitefish Bird Observatory and meet up with Chris and Nova, who are two seasonal employees here at the observatory, and they actually do some banding of the birds that come through. So we're going to talk a little bit with them about what they do and how they go about it. All right, Chris, how about telling us a little bit about what you guys do here when you go out to band the birds?
Well, we have mist nets set up, which are nets specifically designed for catching birds. We run all night for the owls. We start about a half hour after sunset, close a half hour before sunrise. And what we're doing, it's a long-term project that WPBO, Whitefish Point Bird Observatory, has been running since about, I think, 1984. So we're just trying to monitor and document the owl migration through Whitefish Point. We'll go out every 45 minutes through the night checking the nets. We bring all the owls back here. They're fitted with a metal band which is issued by the USGS. It's the bird banding lab out of Maryland. We take measurements, you know, wing, tail, weight. We check them for body condition. And unlike the water bird count and, you know, the hawk flight, you can't document this migration through visual observations. You know, they're nocturnal, they're hard to detect, so this is really the only way to really do a pretty thorough job of documenting the owl migration through Whitefish Point. It's really, I mean, it's the most diverse and most extensive spring migration in North America. Yeah, 9 species regularly occur here, right, 4 owls. And we run the owl migration monitoring spring, summer, and fall. There's more and more sites in North America developing. It's been, you know, in the last 10 years, saw wet banding, and specifically has really exploded. Sorry?
Northern saw-whet owl is the smallest owl in the northern regions, and that's the most migratory, it seems, of the North American owls. So it's a pretty easy owl for people to start with when they start owl banding. So there's a lot of sites that are just devoted to catching saw-whets throughout the U.S. Yeah, so all the bans to all banding stations in North America, which is U.S. and Canada, are issued by USGS Bird Banding Lab in Maryland. And each band has a particular number on it that is, you know, different. So when you put the band on the leg of the owl, it's basically like Social Security number. There's not going to be any other band with the same number anywhere else in the country, which is very helpful, because if we catch an owl that has a band already on its leg, then we note down the number. We don't take the band off, we just take down the number and measurements, and we send that into the bird banding lab, and they can tell us where the bird was originally banded, and we can get a sense for where it has migrated and its movement patterns.
So these are the smallest bands we really use here. It's for northern saw-whet owls. And this is the largest, which is a lock-on band. That would be for great horned or snowy owl. And I don't know if you can see it, but there are the, you know, there's the individual number. And so in doing the banding, we not only get a number of the owls coming through, get a sense of the migration, but you also find out where birds, you can find out where the birds go to spend the winter. Sometimes we get them back on the reports from breeding grounds. You get wild longevity records.
And the kind of an important thing about this is these bands, they weigh 0.2 of a gram, and they do not hurt the owls in any way. It's basically just like having a little bracelet on, or a watch band in this case. And we make sure every owl that we put a band on, that the band can freely move this way, back and forth, and up and down. So it's not constricting the owl in any way. And over all the returns we've ever had, which are owls that we've captured that already have a band on their leg, we've never had any problems.
And some of the saw-whets are what we catch the most of. Since 2007, the average has actually been over 700 a season, and we generally will catch about 40 birds, saw-whets that have already been banded, and we get more returns from other sites, and the saw-whets have shown up from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan down to Alabama, been recaptured at their nest up in Quebec near the Hudson Bay. They've ended up in Boston, Virginia. We get a lot of terns with Wisconsin, so they're really dispersing in every direction from here, which this central location of their territory, their breeding grounds, we get some really interesting returns back from them.
How many, you said you've had some recurring birds, or they've been banded before. Have you guys had actual recurring birds from this site that you found?
Yeah, we do. We get,
probably 20.
Yeah, a season, probably. Yeah.
Any for numerous years, more than just 2 years?
Yeah.
Really?
One for what, 3 years?
One was 4.
4.
One returned 4 times.
And one was in the same net within 2 hours of where we had banded it. Probably, what, 4 years previously?
Yeah.
And others, I mean, they return a month different, you know, in captures. Like we say we banded it March 30th one year, we've caught it April 30th another year, where other birds seem to be right at the same time.
Any big surprises ever in the nets?
Chuckwill's widow, which is a more southern bird. It's a nightjar, and there's only 2 records for the UP, and both were from here during the owl banding. There's been one hanging for several years down in Bergen County during the summer, but it's a real rare bird on the UP. Obviously, just 2 records.
For the smaller owls, the boreal owls and the saw-whet owls, we put them in these little huts when we're getting ready to band them. They get to wait in here until we have a chance to band them. And these are just, we call them little owl hotels. They have carpeting. They're very fancy, and we can write the information we need to out on here.
This was such an incredible opportunity for myself as well as the high schoolers to be able to be right in the same room with Chris and Nova as they first tagged these owls and then recorded the data. This study is so important for all of these species of birds that Chris and Nova, as well as the other biologists, work with there at Whitefish Bird Observatory. And even though it was a late night for us, staying up after midnight just to wait for these guys to be able to actually bring some owls in, it was well worth it. Definitely a first for many of us, including me, to be able to be up close like that with owls. And even after all the work I've done with Michigan wildlife my whole life, I had never in my life seen a saw-whet owl, and then to be able to actually be right next to it was just amazing for us.
Don't bite too much, and they're cute, and we get lots of them. This is a particularly large one. She's 105 grams. So we say they weigh about as much as a flying stick of butter. So the same. And oh, it's a spider web. Huh? How'd you get that caught in there? Wow, it's really caught. They have really soft feathers. See, when you can hear their little click. That's their bill. They make a sound with their bill. But when their feathers flap, you don't hear anything. And that's partially because they have this fringe, which you can really see on the outside of this feather, which allows the air to pass through. And they also have, all their feathers are very soft, which also helps the air to pass through. And you can actually, yeah, they're really soft.
That's cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really neat.
But we also have to remember it's, of course, a wild owl, even though it is being very docile at the moment.
Spinning his head.
Yeah. The other thing, they can turn their heads 3/4 of the way around.
Even you did that stare, Mr. Ashley.
I think it might be looking at, I don't know if my lens is reflecting, but...
No, and as we were saying, unlike with the water birds and the hawks, we can't really do visual counts on these. And even during the day, I mean, you see how small they are? They like to roost in very dense, tree cover. So we can band, on average 700 a spring, and we're lucky if you see 2 otherwise. So, you know, there's no real way to document these guys real accurately without the banding. And they are great education birds. We banded as many as 112 in a night. The first night of the season this year we banded 94.
You can see their wingspan's a lot larger than just their body.
Do you recapture a lot of banded birds too?
Normally in a season we'll get 30 to 40 that are already banded, and then we're also getting returns back from other sites on the birds we banded. So you're getting a pretty decent percentage of returns on these guys, and that's how wild longevity records are set. And obviously migratory routes and wintering grounds, breeding grounds.
We should show the black light. So this owl doesn't have what we call molt. It only all of its primaries and secondaries, which are its flight feathers, are all the same age. But on this other bird, it has 2 generations, which means it's older than 1 year. And you can see it under the black light.
So there's all these white ones in the middle. They're retained. They're feathers that were not replaced. They're a year older than these ones that are showing all that pink.
Yeah, the pink really flares. Yeah.
Crazy. So this bird was born in the summer of 2010 from that molt pattern.
Is yours female too?
Yeah.
Yeah, these are both females.
So females are actually larger than males.
What is the, I don't know if you guys have already mentioned this, but what is the average lifespan, and what is, so far according to your records?
It's hard to say what the average one is, but someone actually from Long Point in Ontario just this past fall set the wild longevity record. It was a 10-year, it was over 10 years. Which for a bird this size is...
Yeah, it's hard to know because we catch so many more first-year birds. And then, you know, something usually happens to weed those out by their second year.
Okay.
But you can see on this one, these are their talons, and this is how they catch their prey. And they don't, I mean, they don't eat insects. Most people think they do. They actually mostly eat mice and voles. And we actually caught an owl once in a net, and it still had a vole in its talons. And the vole weighed half of what the saw-whet weighed. The vole weighed 40 grams, and the saw-whet weighed about 80. So that's a pretty big meal. But yeah, their talons are pretty sharp, like little needles.
They get to see.
And yeah, their ears actually are located on both sides of their head, and they're asymmetrical, so they have like 3D hearing. So one ear is tipped a little forward, the other one's tipped a little back, and also the one ear is tipped like up a little bit and the other one's tipped down. So you can see their eyes don't actually move in their head side to side like ours do, so they have to turn their head. It's like binocular vision. And when they hear something, they move their head until it's reaching both ears at the same time. So then they know they're looking exactly at the prey.
These guys are particularly good. They're cavity nesters, so they almost, like when you're putting in the can, they'll actually push off your hand to get in there, like they think they're getting safe, you know, saw-whets and boreals.
And of course the cans have little air.
And what do you do with the big owls? Do they go in a can too?
Coffee cans.
Oh, all right.